You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode is the adventure film Jurassic Park, directed by Steven Spielberg, released June 11th, 1993.
Wow. Another old one.
We gotta throw it back for the classics for a while. It's easy. They're movies that everybody should have already seen or should be able to find and see and watch along with us. So what better way to start this podcast off, these first few episodes, right?
I agree 100%. Based on the 1990 novel of the same name by Michael Crichton, it was filmed in both California and Hawaii. Jurassic Park went on to gross over $914 million worldwide in its original theatrical run, becoming the highest grossing film of 1993 and the highest grossing film ever at the time, a record that it held until the release of Titanic in 1997. The rights were purchased prior to the novel's release, and Crichton was hired to help them turn the book into the screenplay. However, David Koepp wrote the final draft, which made numerous changes to the characters, which we will discuss a little bit later. So, Peg, why don't you give us the synopsis of Jurassic Park?
All right. The synopsis is: on a remote island, a wealthy entrepreneur secretly creates a theme park featuring living dinosaurs drawn from prehistoric DNA. Before opening the attraction to the public, he invites a top paleontologist, paleobotanist, and a mathematician theorist, and his two eager grandchildren to experience the park and help calm anxious investors. However, their park visit is anything but tranquil. As the park's security system breaks down, prehistoric creatures break out, and the excitement builds to surprising results.
That is fantastic. If I hadn't already seen this movie, that synopsis,
I would hook you.
It would definitely hook me. I've loved dinosaurs since I was a kid. Watching this film, I felt like I was seeing my childhood imagination being brought to life. Within reason, that is. I didn't grow up thinking about the death and destruction that goes along with it. It's pretty neat that Steven Spielberg gave us two of the best action movies of the 20th century with Jurassic Park and also 1975's Jaws. After 27 years, I think the effects in Jurassic Park still hold up. There are only 15 minutes of dinosaur footage in the movie. 9 minutes are animatronics, including a 12,000-pound T-Rex.
Man.
6 minutes of it is industrial light and magic CGI. I feel like the dinosaurs are in it so much more than they are.
Yeah, it's crazy to think there's only 15 minutes. I was like, because they seem like such a focal point. I was like, wait, weren't they in like the whole movie? So yeah, it's crazy that they really took those moments that they could use dinosaur footage and could implement the CGI and animatronics and made the absolute most of it.
I agree. I felt like the dinosaurs were there the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that was the point, was to make us feel that way while we were watching.
Yeah, because they use a lot of those like little camera tricks where like a dinosaur or something is creeping through an area and it's just the camera moving through grass or around trees. But like, yeah, you feel the dinosaur's presence even when they're not on screen. So yeah, they did that really well.
I thought so too. Did you have any additional initial thoughts?
Yeah, mine are always a little shorter than yours, but that's okay because you go in and then I'm just like, yeah, I liked it. No, but I really did. It is a pure classic movie, like definition of classic movie at this point, I think. Because it's been almost 30 years. Hopefully, like everybody has seen Jurassic Park by now. If you haven't, where are you in life? Like get on that and crawl out from the rock and enjoy one of the best movies ever because it's so worth it. Everybody should see this movie in their lifetime. It's got an incredible story, amazing practical effects that always continue to stand the test of time, and the cast is just incredible as well. So all of those ingredients together, this movie is full of heart, humor, and heart-pounding suspense and action. Like, it's near perfect as a film. I really have to say, like, I dare to say is damn near perfect.
I have to agree with you on that. I also think, going back to the 15 minutes of dinosaur footage, that opening scene where they're showing the raptor pen, they're giving you just these little glimpses of plants moving. They want you to see the danger and the urgency without showing too much. And then the poor man gets dragged inside. He's gone. Steven Spielberg was known for this not only in Jurassic Park, but also in Jaws, where he would just keep the creature away from the audience for as long as he possibly could. And I think he definitely did it well in this movie. I also enjoyed when the helicopter was dropping down into Jurassic Park. It's like they came up over and then they were just dropping down.
Yeah, and it's such an iconic moment with that score and the music just kind of swelling through oh man. I found myself just humming and whistling along with the music throughout the whole movie. Just
The movie itself was so well scored, and I loved that especially the action sequences had so much tension. It just was beautiful. I have to move on, though, to one of my other favorite things about this movie. And there are many favorite things about this movie because it was just fantastic. I have to agree with Pake. I think it's near perfect. I struggled to find things that are really wrong with it. One of my favorite things about this movie were the characters, including Dr. Ellie Sattler. For me, she represented this strong, intelligent woman at a time where it wasn't as common to showcase female characters who had their own identities and trajectories. Kind of like Rhonda in Tremors. Mm-hmm. I loved when she was examining the sick Triceratops with Dr. Harding and was diagnosing what could be wrong with her. She knew all the right questions to ask. She wasn't afraid of getting her hands dirty, literally.
Yeah.
And I loved that she and Dr. Grant had such a passion and respect for the science of the dinosaurs.
Well, speaking of that scene with the Triceratops, if I'm remembering correctly, did she ever really find out exactly what was going on? I don't think so. At least not that we found out about. Of course, I have maybe a theory, but I don't know.
What do you think was going on with the Triceratops?
Maybe was it just pregnant?
Potentially, it could have been.
They touch on that where they find out they've adapted. Life finds a way, and
yes, it does. And I totally agree with that. I wondered that too. I mean, she was going through this list. It wasn't like she was actually like speaking. She was more like talking to herself, I think, a little bit. She knew the right questions to ask, and so she was able to communicate with Dr. Harding like she was a pro, and I loved that. Dr. Grant was not the only one with the brains, and I just love that this movie really showcases this strong female character. Mm-hmm. And I liked how Laura Dern portrayed her as well, because she was comical at times in some of her interactions, especially with Dr. Ian Malcolm. And with Dr. Grant a little bit, because I feel like they never really came out and said that they were in a relationship, but we inferred that they were in a relationship.
Yeah, it comes up between Grant and Malcolm a little bit when they're riding together, because Malcolm's like, so what's the deal with Ellie? Is she single or is she? And he kind of infers too. He was like, oh, you two? And he's just kind of like, yeah. And then they just drop it at that.
I liked that interaction. There were so many cool little comedy moments in the movie, I think, to take a little bit of the pressure off of it being so intense.
Yeah.
I think that those comedy moments really made it so enjoyable to watch and gave you that chance to take a breath, where most of the time you were on the edge of your seat wondering, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
Mm-hmm. So I think something that you can't talk Jurassic Park without talking one thing. So I think let's go ahead and dive into it. And this might take a big chunk of time, but that's okay because you got to give them their proper dues. The Velociraptors. Let's go. Let's talk about this. I have always just been a huge fan of the Velociraptors and their movements, the sounds they make, that everything is just, they knew how to make them so menacing yet so intriguing at the same time.
They were so smart.
Yeah.
To me, they remind me a lot. I have ferrets as pets, and when you try to put them in a different room or away from where they're trying to get to when they're not supposed to be, they look up at you like they're trying to figure shit out so that they can get to where they want to go. And it doesn't matter that you've blocked it off. It doesn't matter that the door is closed. They will figure out a way
Yeah.
to get into where they're not supposed to go. And velociraptors, very much the same. They will find a way
Yeah.
to get where they want to go.
And Dr. Grant was very aware of that. He, for some whatever reason, was very keen on knowing about velociraptors. Like, it was part of his, which I don't know how many paleontologists really actually dig deep into the, abilities and processes of how dinosaurs worked when they were alive. But I mean, maybe he's just a super nerd in that fact that he was like, yeah, I'm a paleontologist, but also like he wrote books about the behaviors of dinosaurs and evolution and stuff. So he went a little bit further than just paleontology. But just that look on his face when he realizes the egg hatching was a velociraptor, and he was like, wait, no, you have raptors on the island? Like, it is, his demeanor changes immediately. Like, oh no, that's a bad idea. Don't do that.
Why would you have raptors? Why would you have raptors?
Yeah.
It takes me back to when he was telling the story to the little boy at the beginning.
Yes, which, who is that kid? Why is he just some random kid on this dig site? Where is his parents? Why is he showing up out of nowhere talking shit to experts? I don't know.
I don't know. That surprised me too. I couldn't understand. Like, why is there a random kid here? That's kind of, it doesn't make any sense. But then he makes that comment about it not being very scary, and then Dr. Grant comes and tells his story about how it wouldn't be the velociraptor in front of you that you should be worried about. It's the one that you haven't even seen coming in from the side. And guess what? Later on in the movie.
So I say, let's go ahead. Let's jump forward to that just a little bit and talk about Robert Muldoon and the fact that, clever girl. The way he goes out, it perfectly mirrors that story that Alan Grant told that kid at the dig site at the beginning of the film.
Absolutely. I liked Muldoon because he seemed to really understand that the dinosaurs were dangerous, the raptors were predators, and he had that respect for that. He understood it. Others in this movie, you could tell, were disrespectful to the dinosaurs, and Muldoon was not one of them. I think he had an understanding, especially, that the raptors were a lot smarter than what people, or what Hammond originally had thought, especially when he was talking about them testing the electrified fence.
Yeah.
Like, they would never go to the same spot twice. It was like they were trying to find the weakness. And I also found it interesting that the one big female killed off all but two of the others.
Yeah. Almost as to set like an alpha status of like, you either fall in line or you go away. Like,
yeah.
Which, going back to Muldoon, talking about that with the fences and stuff, everything he said to Grant at that moment should have been very alarming. I mean, when the first guy died at the very beginning of the movie, they should have been, oh no, this is a bad idea, lock it all up, we're not doing this. But John Hammond is a dreamer, way past what he knows is good for him. And that keeps going. But what I loved about Muldoon giving that speech is because I have actual personal connection to that a little bit.
Really?
Sounds crazy. It's nothing that special. But no, PS4, the video game, Jurassic World Evolution. I do have that game. I've played that game. And what that game is you build, operate, and maintain your own Jurassic World. You build a park. You have, you breed the dinosaurs. You put them in enclosures. You have guests. It's like Roller Coaster Tycoon, but with dinosaurs.
Wow. I need to get this
game.
Oh,
it's great. You would love it. But what Muldoon said, it hit a sore spot with me playing that game because, I stopped breeding and containing raptors. I couldn't do it because they always found a way out of the enclosure, no matter what security measures you would take on the game. It is so frustrating because, like what Muldoon says, they do. If you watch them on the game, they examine every part of the habitat and the fence, and they look for weak spots, and they always get out no matter what kind of high security fences. And so, I highly recommend the game, highly unrecommend breeding raptors in your park because they are a nightmare to deal with, even in the video game.
Duly noted. Noted. You know what's interesting too about raptors is there was information that came out about them after the book and the movie had been released, and I was a bit surprised by it. They had found proof that raptors actually had feathers.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was a little odd and unique I kind of didn't like it because I liked the raptors that were in Jurassic
You like
Park.
picturing the way that they were.
Yeah.
But it gives even more credit to Dr. Alan Grant's character in the movie saying that they, evolved into modern day birds, and he's pointing out all these things. Well, now if you go back and realize, oh, they were most likely, very feathered, and it points more in that direction. So the movie, even though they were doing really well at the time, they were even kind of ahead of the time with that bird thought process. So yeah, you notice when Nedry's kind of shutting down the system, even he leaves the raptor pin untouched. And so because that was like their first, like, where Muldoon comes in and is like, oh, all the fences are going down. He's like, raptor pin, check the raptor pin. And they were like, no, okay, it's still up, that's good. So then they should have known, like, it was the only choice they had was to shut down the entire system, but they should have known that means the raptor pin at that point. And that's going to be the single biggest mistake you could possibly make is shutting down their power on that fence. And so when Sattler and Muldoon are heading out to the building to repower everything, that's one of the first things they notice is, yep, raptors are out. Hold on to your butts. Things are about to get real bad. And the raptors in there with Sattler were, that scene is just where she's flipping the switch, getting stuff done, and then raptors.
Yeah, they're so scary. They're my favorite of all the dinosaurs. Raptors are my favorite. I think because they're smart, stealth. They like to figure things out. Yeah. They like to plan, and I like to think that I like to plan. The evolution of the raptor throughout the whole series of movies is something that we'll talk about on a later podcast, because there have been some interesting changes, not huge ones, but little changes and adaptations from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. That'll be fun to track.
It will. I think so. I really like the dinosaurs as a whole, the way that they stuck with the animatronics for as much as possible.
Yeah.
Versus trying to do a lot of CGI, because as we've talked about before, CGI doesn't always hold up. It holds up long enough, but it only holds up until the next big CGI Marvel comes out. Mm-hmm. And then once those effects get made, the old ones start to look dated. And I love that Steven Spielberg worked with company to make sure that these dinosaurs looked so realistic.
Yeah.
That T-Rex. Her name is Roberta, by the way. You know how in Jaws the shark's name is Bruce? Mm-hmm. Well, Roberta is a name that I believe some of the fans call her.
I love it.
They also call her Rexy.
Yeah.
And this is only the first of several appearances she makes in the series as well.
Nice. And which I say we should go into T-Rex, but before that, even though, not to beat a dead raptor, but there's one more Velociraptor-fueled scene that we can't talk about this movie and not talk about. So I think we go with that, and then I think we might be retired on the raptor talk for a little bit. But you have to do it, right? The kitchen scene with the kids and the raptors. It's got to be talked about.
It's got to be talked about. Well, they definitely weren't playing with kittens and puppies in the kitchen. Those two raptors were ferocious.
Yes. It's such an intense, not just scene, I guess, but just whole section of the movie. And it's all like choreographed kind of in a way where it's the highest intensity and tension they could possibly like milk out of that.
I liked there were several moments where they used different viewpoints or perceptions, like the reflection of the kids. Mm-hmm. They were in like a little cabinet.
Yeah.
But the door was open and their reflection was on another, because everything was stainless steel.
Yeah.
So the Velociraptor thought that they were straight ahead when really they were on the flip side of the cabinet.
I love that moment.
He ran bang into there. And I also loved when Tim ran down to the freezer and the Velociraptor chased him in there, and then he pops out and locks the door.
Yep. So good.
Imagine though that the kids how they were reacting.
Man, that would be horrifying, from them stalking back and forth up, the aisles between the tables, or that moment when one of them just jumps up onto the table, I was like fist pumping with glee. Like I was just like, yes, I love, because I knew it was coming. So, I've seen this movie so many times where I even was like, like waiting for it, and then it happened. I was like, there it goes. Like,
I loved it. I feel like the time in that kitchen was well spent. I think the kids did such a fantastic job portraying the characters in that scene because they didn't have a lot to react to, I don't think, when the scene was being filmed. But yet you could see the terror in their eyes.
Oh, yeah. You'd think that knowing that the raptor feet walking around the aisles where you're seeing just the legs, you'd think that knowing that that was just done by like people wearing like boots that looked like raptor feet just stomping around would take away from but no, not at all. It even like the claw tapping on the floor, and just everything is so high intensity. Even when you kind of know behind the scenes everything that was going on throughout that scene, they still pulled it off perfectly.
I think, though, throughout the whole movie, they did a great job because you're in an impossible situation with the dinosaurs, a T-Rex, and other dinosaurs, and trying to emote what's really happening when you may not see what's supposed to be there is just, it's not an easy thing to do for adults to do. So for kids to do it, I think that that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I do have another dinosaur I'd like to talk about before we move on to the T-Rex.
Okay.
And it's because it's not a secret that my least favorite character in this movie was Dennis Nedry. Talk about disrespect. Talk about ulterior motives and other... I was not a bit upset to see him meet his end.
Well, no, because if you think about it, you can put the entire blame of everything that happens in this movie on him. He's the one that shut down the systems, that locked out, that shut down all of the power fences and put the hack into the computer system that made them have to turn the whole rest of the system off. It was all on Dennis Nedry.
Absolutely. And so I was not a bit upset when he had some trouble with his Jeep. Trying to get to the boat. Honestly, I don't think he was going in the right direction. I think when he hit the sign and knocked it over, he was supposed to go the other way, because if he was around Dilophosaurus...
Yeah, that's going into the park on the tour. Yeah.
So he was heading into danger instead of on his way to the boat. Yeah, I could not stand him. When he went in with his little Barbasol can to collect the specimens, I was reading the names of the dinosaurs on there.
Oh, yeah, which I'll let you finish your thought, but then I've got a fun fact on that for the can and the specimens, but yeah.
All right. When he gets up, I find it so funny that Hammond did not pick up on the fact that when he stood up, he's acting like a nervous wreck.
Oh, I know.
He's standing there like, I'm going to go get a snack and the server's going to reboot, and he's stuttering, and it's like something was wrong.
Right? It's like, oh, that wasn't suspicious at all. You nailed it. Good job, man.
Yeah, no.
Oh.
I did love his interactions with Hammond, though, and Hammond basically slamming him back and saying, your financial problems are your own, basically. And I liked that because you could tell, based on that little interaction, that maybe Hammond had helped him out from time to time and had cut the purse string so there was no more Bank of Hammond bankrolling Nedry's indiscretions. So when Nedry does go up and he fills the Barbasol can, Pake, why don't you tell us what specimens he got?
Oh, yeah. Because, kind of at the beginning when Dodgson shows up, which is a classic memeable moment. It lives in memery to this day. The Dodgson's here. See, nobody cares. So Dodgson tells him, as part of this, he's got to sneak in and, to undermine Hammond, he's got to steal all 15 specimens, the embryos, and bring them back in that can. Well, he said 15. I immediately in my notes said, okay, I'm making a list. Let me see how many I can spot throughout the movie. And then, I'm going to make this list. I'm going to find all 15. So here's what it is. First off was just the ones that I could notice, because I was a dinosaur nerd as a kid. So I knew my dinosaurs. I had the books. I knew all the types and all the stuff about it. And that information is still floating around in my head. So the ones that I could pick out, because they play a big part in the movie or you see them, of course, the Velociraptor, the Tyrannosaurus, the Brachiosaurus, so that's 3, Triceratops, Gallimimus, Dilophosaurus, so then you get the 6, Parasaurolophus, you see them with the Brachiosauruses whenever Grant and Sattler and Malcolm first see the Brachiosauruses. The Parasaurolophus is by the water side with them. And so those are the ones that I noticed throughout the movie. Then other ones that you don't see the dinosaur, but you see a label with the name when Nedry is collecting the embryos. Proceratosaurus is labeled on there. Stegosaurus is labeled, misspelled, by the way, with an A instead of an O. Stegosaurus is the typo on the label. And Metriacanthosaurus is on the label. And so those are the other next ones you see that are confirmed labeled. That gets us to 10. Then there are 2 more labels that you don't see the name, but each little embryo thing has like code letters on it, like Tyrannosaurus is TR, Velociraptor is like VC or something like that. So 2 of them are labeled BA and CS, and based on what people know about Jurassic Park in the series, those are considered to be baryonyx and Compsognathus, or the compies. So that gets us to 12. And then 13 and 14 are found labeled in the Jurassic Park brochure when they're looking at it. So there's spots on the island that are set for Herrerasaurus and Segosaurus. There's 14. So then I was like, okay, what is this last one? And it was hard to find, and there's still not 100% confirmation. However, I dove into the Jurassic Park wiki page, and according to them, the 15th one is Corythosaurus. Jurassic Park wiki states this, although I don't see any film proof. I don't see any, but that's where they said. So as what I could find in the research that I did, those are supposedly the 15 dinosaurs that are on this first iteration of Jurassic Park.
Wow.
Thanks for that nerd fest, Pake.
No, that was great. You know, the interesting thing is I'm thinking about the baryonyx. They're not nice dinosaurs. Mm-mm. I'm not sure why you would want to breed them, but again, we don't know who Nedry, other than Dodgson, we don't know who Nedry was taking these embryos to. Yeah. And his little Barbasol can is now sitting on Isla Nublar, untouched, because Nedry met an unfortunate end. With a Dilophosaurus.
Yeah, which something I noticed, I don't know, because I had to replay it a couple of times. I was like, did that really happen? Before he falls down and meets the Dilophosaurus, when he's trying to deal with the winch, and he slips on the little waterfall and falls, there was it's kind of buried under the audio, but it is very audible, a slip sound that just happens, like a little gaff, cartoony slip sound that happens as he falls. And I had to keep replaying it because, like, did they really? And I was like, somebody in the audio department is just, like, could not help themselves. And I could only hear it every time that I, like, rewatched that scene.
Oh, my God. Now I'm going to have to go and rewatch that scene. I have to. Because that's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Because I just feel like Mr. Disrespect is getting his comeuppance, by the Dilophosaurus. Which, by the way, that is not what a Dilophosaurus really looks like. I think that there were some modifications made, potentially due to the amphibian DNA that they used. That it made some
mutations.
It did cause some of these strange mutations to happen. That wasn't the only one. Could it have been Velociraptor as well? Yeah. But a Dilophosaurus actually does not have these gigantic frills that come out from the side of its head. At all. Yeah. It has the 2 crests on the top and a gap in between them on its head. But the frill that comes out on the side, that definitely did not happen. The only explanation that I could think of is the amphibian DNA caused some abnormal traits to appear as a result of the cloning. With Dr. Wu, who we meet for the first time briefly in this movie.
Yeah, Henry Wu plays a big part in the whole series, and it's interesting to go back and see him so young in this first movie.
I know. I thought that too. In the first movie, you don't notice anything about him that's out of the ordinary. He looks like a doctor who's doing his job, cloning dinosaurs, the eggs hatch. There's nothing out of the ordinary. However, this is just Jurassic Park. Yeah. We're not talking about any of the other movies, so we'll just leave it at that. Yeah. Let's go to the T-Rex.
All right, perfect. Mentioned Roberta earlier. Let's get to talking about her. Probably the single most important dinosaur, just little bit more important than the Velociraptors in
Roberta is amazing. I think that she was the only T-Rex that they had on the island.
Yeah, and I think that's the only one they go with.
She definitely has a thing for lawyers. She took care of him very quickly when he was hiding in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. It serves him right for leaving those kids behind in that
Can
Jeep.
you imagine?
He left us.
I could not believe that he did that to them.
Oh.
I mean, holy crap. You just leave the kids there by themselves, and then the goat gets eaten, and the leg drops, and everything goes crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And he just decides to run over to this little hut, which is made of nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know how he thought he was going to be safe in there. It's like, you know what? I think you might be able to go too.
Yeah. Very brutally, though.
Yeah, it was kind of gross.
Since he's like the first casualty of the movie, technically. Yeah. They had to make sure to go put him out, go big on the first one.
He was kind of annoying right from the beginning. You could tell that he was a money man, and it was all about the money to him.
Yeah.
We're going to make a fortune. We can charge $2,000 for a person. And you could tell it was all about the money, where Hammond was not like that at all.
Yeah.
He was more, no, everyone should get to experience these things. But in his own way, Hammond was a bit delusional as well.
Absolutely.
And we'll get to that topic a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
The cool thing about the T-Rex is she was a menace, but in the end, she came in and saved the day and allowed Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, and the kids to escape.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie. Otherwise, they would have been raptor lunch.
Mm-hmm. Which isn't that just one of the most iconic scenes of all time? Which this movie is chock full of iconic moments. But the T-Rex standing there after taking out the raptors, and the banner when dinosaurs ruled the earth just flowing down.
I loved that part.
It's so good.
Getting to the end of the movie to see that one part with the banner coming down, to me, that just signifies so much about the prior events. Roberta is a dinosaur and she's taking control. The banner is down because guess what?
Not when.
The big bad
Not
is
when
back.
we did, but we do again.
We do again. So there you go. Reminds me of another scene in one of the sequels that we will not cover on this episode, but we will cover on a future episode. Yeah. It's also one of my favorite scenes in that particular movie. Roberta actually is one of my favorite parts of most of the movies that she has appeared in, because I just think she's amazing. I wanted to talk a little bit about the adaptation of the book versus the movie.
All right.
Just for a minute. The cool thing about this, and I mentioned it earlier, is Spielberg convinced the studio to get the film rights before the book had even been published. So I'm not sure how he got an advance copy or what he was thinking, but he decided he wanted to make this movie. In the process to create the film, of course, needed a screenplay, because books to screenplays are not always a simple process. There's a lot of things, modifications that need to be made. If you've ever seen any of the other larger scale series movies, it's the same thing. Some things get cut out in favor of others just to make the story a little bit better. So a couple of the cool things. Hammond, who was played by the legendary Richard Attenborough, he comes across as this lovable grandfather type, Lord of the Dinosaurs. In the book, he's much less likable, and he actually doesn't survive. Mm-hmm. In fact, he is devoured by a pack of compies after breaking his ankle.
Oh, man.
And now, cute little compies, they're only about a foot tall. How dangerous could they be? Well, yeah.
Well, we find that out in future movies in this series again, also.
Exactly. The difference, though, Hammond did not die, and we didn't see any compies.
Yeah.
Only, their embryo? Yeah, we only saw their embryo.
Yeah.
Another thing that's different, Ellie Sattler has a much bigger role in the film than she did in the book. And some of the other major characters from the book are omitted entirely. And the book also switched the roles of Tim and Lexi. In the book, Tim was the older sibling that was kind of the computer hacker kid. And Lexi was the younger sibling. But I kind of liked the switch. I think that it worked really well. There are some different things, too, where the opening scene that sets up the Lost World actually was in the first book.
Okay, yeah.
So, also, as I mentioned earlier, they brought Michael Crichton in to do the screenplay, but then David Koepp actually wrote the final draft, and he had made additional changes that left out some pieces, and it's definitely not exactly what Crichton had put together, but I think it still was pretty good.
Yeah, it took a life on its own, and I think
yeah, I definitely
it's been great.
I definitely liked it. So, Pate, what do you have next in your notes?
All right. Well, while we were talking about the T-Rex, I think one of the most iconic parts of the T-Rex. So we're about to go back down the nerdy wormhole with Pake. Yay! I've got another list for you. But
awesome.
One of the most iconic things about the T-Rex, of course, is its roar and how it just like sets you on edge. There is something specific that, you know, there are multiple things that are specific in that audio clip, that roar, that are just really bone chilling, and really like it's something that sits with you. You hear it, and it's something that's part of that. And so I wanted to do another little deep dive on, okay, what was this roar? How did they get this roar together? And of course, the ingredients that were mixed together to create this Tyrannosaurus roar is the squeal of a baby elephant, the gurgle of an alligator, and the snarl of a tiger. And then knowing that, listening to it, I could pick those pieces out as I'm listening to it. And yeah, those are great. And then also like when it's breathing, it's just air coming out of a whale's blowhole as part of. And yeah, I love the way they did that. But it put me on a little rabbit hole trail. I was like, okay, what about the other dinosaurs in this film? How did they get those sounds? Where do they come up with the audio from? Because obviously they don't have real dinosaurs that they can record audio from. So I went down the little wormhole and found some other fun ones. The velociraptors, for instance. Their call, which I love to do, but I will not do it on this podcast. Sorry, you're missing out.
Maybe in the future, guys, I'll get him to do it.
What is actually taken from the sounds of mating tortoises.
Oh my god. Oh wow. I'll never look at I will never look at a tortoise the same way again.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
So the velociraptor's call is really a call of love, if you will. Of course the velociraptor's breathing against the glass and stuff is taken from like a horse.
I can see that.
They also take sounds from, again, it's very sexual that they ended up finding a lot of these sounds. A dolphin in heat, a male dolphin, or not in heat, but a male dolphin in that kind of period where he's looking for a mate, are some of the sounds that the velociraptors take. And whenever they hiss, that's the sound of a goose hissing when it's being perturbed. So I love that they just like they take all of these inspirations from other animals and it fits perfectly. The baby raptor that was being born out of the egg was taking baby fox sounds, and then when it turns menacing after Alan realizes that it's a velociraptor, is a sound of a baby owl that has more of that kind of, you know, throaty kind of sound to it.
Menacing before it can walk.
Mm-hmm. The Gallimimus was taken from a horse, kind of that little squeal whenever they're kind of, you know, surprised by something near them or whatever, and because when they're running from the T-Rex, that's where they got those. The Brachiosaurus was actually when they're singing while they're watching them in the trees, is a very slowed down kind of pitched donkey sound is where they got the Brachiosaurus, which is really fun. And then, of course, when the Brachiosaurus sneezes on Lex, it's a mix between a whale's blowhole and a fire hydrant, which is fun that they did that.
Oh, my goodness.
The Triceratops, a lot of the sounds for the Triceratops, the sick Triceratops that Sattler is looking at, taken from cows. And then it's one of the only non-organic sounds that they use was actually a lot of the Triceratops sound was somebody breathing through a cardboard tube that had a spring in it. And it just managed to find this perfect sound. And lastly, the Dilophosaurus, your hero, is a mix of a swan when it's being kind of cute and sweet. That's what a swan sounds like. You get that, and then the rattlesnake and hawk sounds are whenever it's more aggressive.
Yes.
So,
And
yeah.
Nedry definitely got to experience both of those.
Yep.
I totally can see the swan now. That doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
That was a rabbit hole.
Yeah. I tend to do that sometimes.
I think that's great. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did too.
File that away into your like useless knowledge that you can break out at a party once that's available for us to do again.
Oh, parties. That'd be such a wonderful thing. And I'm sure you do as well, because you always do, have a few production notes and other tidbits that I wanted to share.
All right.
Steven Spielberg, believe it or not, when most of this film was being put together after it had been shot, Spielberg was living in Poland at the time. He was filming another movie that you may have heard of called Schindler's List.
Oh, just that little indie flick, right?
Yeah. Remember, back during that time, technology was not what it is now. And so he was juggling between filming Schindler's List, which is so iconic and deeply emotional, and then he would go back to his hotel to review scenes from Jurassic Park via a crude satellite feed. So he was a bit annoyed of rushing back and forth between two films that were so different. He did not enjoy that very much. He was not a fan.
I can imagine.
Of having to watch that. And you know that the satellite feed was probably not the best. The other thing that I want to mention is that Spielberg wanted the T-Rex to be the star at the end of the movie, which is something I had forgotten until I reread it in an article a couple of days ago. He wanted her to sound like King Kong, and he wanted her to be the last statement of the movie. And I believe she was.
Yeah.
Which we just talked about a few minutes ago. Roberta was at the end, standing tall.
Nailed it.
Taking care of those raptors. So those were just a couple of production notes that I had.
Cool. Let's see. I mean, we could go on forever, so let's try not to go too long, because we respect your time, listener.
Yes, we do.
A little bit, but I mean, yeah, I've got so many notes on here, so I think just another, maybe I can combine these two a little bit.
Okay.
Is other characters that I really, really enjoyed and want to talk about. Of course, Alan Grant himself, and then I believe their last name is supposed to be Murphy, the Murphy siblings, yes. Lex and Tim, Hammond's grandchildren. So yeah, I think Alan Grant as a character is just awesome. So I will tie that together with, I think one of the best through lines of this movie is his relationship with children, to where at the beginning, he scares the crap out of this random dig site kid who knows why that kid was there. But then, so he goes on, talking with Ellie, being like, I can't stand kids. Like, it's just like, that is not my thing. Keep them away from me. And then he meets Lex and Tim is just, which I think it's super adorable that Tim is like a fan of Alan Grant's, and he just wants to, oh my God, in your book, you were talking about this and da-da-da-da-da. And Grant just kind of slowly leads him to the other car and leaves him there like, okay, we're not going to do this today. Like, I think it's super cute, but at the same time, I think Tim would test the patience of any normal person with how much he just wanted to go on and on and on and on and on. So I feel for Dr. Grant in that moment for sure.
I definitely agree with that. And I like too that Dr. Sattler actually sent Lex and Tim to sit with Dr. Grant because, quote, she thought it would be good for him.
I know. She had this mindset that, no, I'm going to break him and I'm going to make him like kids. And I don't think it was really Sattler that did it, but it was, an island of loose killer dinosaurs that finally brought him together with them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, because they get out of the car to go find to look at the Triceratops, and Tim is right by his side, immediately picking right back up where they left off. So yeah, in that book by Backer that I was talking about, like, oh my God, you're still on this.
Yes, I found that really funny and cute and endearing because Tim was really trying. You could see that he was smitten with him as far as like a mentor.
Yeah.
And he was so excited to, I have this book and you wrote it and I want to talk to you and spend as much time with you as I can and ask you all of these questions that I've always had about this book.
Yeah.
And Dr. Grant is really like not having any of it.
No.
But I like that towards the end, that relationship.
Yeah, they finally wear down on him, and he really, he does. He ends up really caring for these kids. And at the very end of the movie, they're flying away in the helicopter, and both kids are asleep on his shoulders, and he's just looking at them, and Ellie's looking at him, and he's like, okay, yeah, they got me. Like, what can I say? But one of the most important scenes, I think, in this movie between Grant and the kids is one that the second that it started, I was just like, oh no, here we go. It is the most high anxiety tension thing for me still to this day. And I don't know why. It somehow scarred me as a child the first time I watched this movie. And it still sticks to me where I'm like cringing and just like, yeah, I know how it goes. I know what happens. I know Tim is okay. But still, the electric fence when they have to climb over it, and then you're watching on the other side Ellie trying to boot this thing back up, not knowing she's about to send 10,000 volts right through poor little Tim. And it's just the anxiety and the tension for me is so hard to watch because I'm just like, especially when I know it's coming and Tim's just hanging on, not climbing down, not jumping, knowing that the light is on and this thing could go on any minute. I'm like, Tim, you're stressing me out, kid. Like, stop. Just let go. Oh.
And he starts counting.
I know.
And you think, okay, he's counting, but he's counting too slow.
Mm-hmm.
Before he can even get one out, he's already on the ground. Dr. Grant caught him.
Yeah.
And then has to give him CPR to bring him back.
The first thing he says when he wakes back up is 3. But yeah, that scene will forever just riddle me with anxiety every time I watch it. So kudos to Jurassic Park for that, I guess.
I like that also in that moment, Dr. Grant kind of has a little bit of fun with them when he puts his hands on the fence and pretends that it's electrified. It's like, and then he looks at them, they're freaking out, and he's like, he just smiles at them, and I'm like, you're getting to him, guys. You're getting to him.
He's getting there.
Yeah.
Which I love in that moment. Lex is just pissed at him, and Tim sits there goes, that was a good one. Like,
I really like that trio. I feel like that over the whole course of the movie, right from the beginning, when they're introduced and hop in the cars together to the end, that their relationship just develops so well. The story just really is interesting, endearing, and the kids are so adorable. And the way that the actors portrayed them. I mean, how can you be the age that to be a little kid and be in a movie and be scared and pretend to be scared? And I don't think I could have done it.
Yeah.
So kudos to them. I thought that was really cool.
They were both, great young actors, which, again, I kind of did a little dive on them to see, because, where we'd see them as they grow up. And so the girl who played Lex, Ariana Richards, didn't really do much more with her acting career. She's done, I think, like 1 or 2 other weird little indie horror films throughout her career, but nobody's really known anything about that. The only other notable thing that she's really done, and we covered it on the first episode of this podcast, is she played Mindy in Tremors, the girl with the pogo stick.
Yes, she did.
That was her.
That was filmed before Jurassic Park.
Yeah, she was a little bit younger. And so really the only other thing she's done in her career, she did reprise both of those roles. She comes back in Tremors 3 and as Mindy, and she does bring back the character of Lex in The Lost World, the next Jurassic Park movie. But that's about it.
Yeah. However, the little boy who played Tim was in a little movie that, I don't know if you've heard of it. I think it's called Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not like it won an Oscar or anything.
No, not at all. Not at all. If I remember right, he was Deacon.
Yes, he was John Deacon. Yeah. So he has had a little bit more of a career. He's done a lot of like bit parts in a lot of movies and stuff. Including that. And also he directed a movie. He directed his first feature-length film in 2016. It's a movie it's a baseball movie about like this underdog baseball team called Undrafted. I have not seen it, but I looked at the cast, and it's Tyler Hoechlin from like Superman and Supergirl stuff, and Chase Crawford in The Boys. He plays the Deep in The Boys, and there's a couple other. So I was
Yeah.
like, so it's something that's on my radar now that I might have to check out. I think he directs and also plays one of the characters in it himself as an adult. So I will have to look at that. Anything else you got, Notes?
I got one more thing.
Cool.
So one of my other favorite scenes in this movie, it really has to do with when Ellie and Alan, Dr. Sattler and Dr. Grant, are getting introduced to the fact that there are actually dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. Because I'm not sure that they truly understood, even though it was alluded to.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they really got it until they were in the Jeep driving over, and Alan's looking around. He sees a Brachiosaurus, and Ellie's just looking at this plant life in her hand saying, this hasn't existed for how many years? And Dr. Grant has to turn her head to look at the Brachiosaurus. And you could see during that whole scene, not just through the opening, the look of awe and wonder, and they're trying to verbally process what they're seeing, but they're also, I think there's emotion in their eyes, especially Dr. Grant's, in realizing that they're seeing something that they've been studying for so long, never had any hope of ever seeing in their life. But again, there it is in front of their faces. I can't even imagine, what it must have been like or felt like for them to see these dinosaurs that they
and
have
you put yourself in the mindset of them as characters and not the actors in the movie, but that was really happening. I think it really reverts Alan Grant almost back to a little kid in some ways, because even when he's seeing the Triceratops and he's getting to touch a dinosaur for the first time, and he's laying on top of it, just rising and falling with its breathing, and he has the biggest grin on his face, like he is a little boy again, just struck with imagination and awe and wonder. And
it's true. It always takes me back to being a little girl and going to the doctor's office, and I didn't have a dinosaur book at home, but every time I would go to the doctor's office, they had this dinosaur book, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it as soon as I got there, because I wanted to look at all the different dinosaurs. I was just obsessed. I wanted to look at them and see the pictures and read the names, and I just loved it. And so I think that's how I feel when I watch the movie, and maybe it's similar to what Dr. Grant was thinking when he was looking at everything in his imagination come to life. It's just so amazing. So let's talk a little bit about some quotes.
Oh, I've got so many quotes. It is one of the highest, quotability ratios of any movie I think I've ever seen. So yeah, we'll do quotes. I've got a lot. Let's go ahead and just kind of do all of our quotes one after the other. So I'll let you go through all of yours that you've got.
Okay.
And I'll pick up any that you didn't get to.
All right. Well, we already talked about Muldoon's clever girl.
Yeah.
I loved that moment, even though he met his end. I loved that moment because to me it just connected the beginning of the movie to where we were near the end because of the story with the raptors. And I think he acknowledged in that moment, you know what? The joke's on me.
Yeah. I fell for it.
I fell for it. She's right over here. It's over. But I also liked when he talked about the velociraptors, and he said they show extreme intelligence, even problem-solving intelligence, especially the big one. We bred 8 originally, but when she came in, she took over the pride and killed all but 2 of the others. One comment he said about that one particular large female was, that one, when she looks at you, you can see she's working things out. That's why we have to feed them like this. She had them attacking the fences when the feeders came. And then he goes on to talk about how they were attacking the electric fence to find any area of weakness. I also really liked this funny little conversation, I guess, where Dr. Ian Malcolm says, God creates dinosaurs, God destroys dinosaurs, God creates man, man destroys God, man creates dinosaurs. To which Ellie responds, dinosaurs eat man, woman inherits the earth.
I love it.
I love that quote. It has always stood the test of time for me. I just think it's great.
I saw a drink menu from a nerd bar somewhere. I don't know. It was on Facebook. But they had like a special like Jurassic Park like week that they were doing at this nerd bar somewhere, and the menu had been posted online, and all of the drink specials, all of the cocktails were those lines. So they had, so the specialty cocktails of that night were, God creates dinosaurs, and then it had like what all like was in that drink, and then dinosaurs, and then God destroys dinosaurs is the next one. It goes all the way through to where even woman inherits the earth is the last one.
I like that. I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I have two more. The other one is actually when Ellie is at the table with Hammond, and he's talking about the flea circus, and he seems to continue to think potentially that there's a way for him to continue his dream of the dinosaur island, and he's concerned about that. Felt he had control of the situation. Even if he had lost control, he thought he could get control back and put things back on course. And then she just lets into him and says, you never had control, that's the illusion. I was overwhelmed by the power of this place, but I made a mistake too. I didn't have enough respect for the power, and it's out now. The only thing that matters now are the people we love, Alan and Lex and Tim. John, they're out there where people are dying. And I feel like she had to slap some sense into him because he was going down this trail of worrying about his empire and his dinosaurs, forgetting all of what was at stake at that time.
Yeah.
And I think that he was just missing the boat. And I feel like she had to bring him around to understand what's really happening here. There's a big problem. People are dying, and your grandchildren are out there. So my last set of quotes is mostly the dialogue that happened at the table.
Okay.
With Dr. Malcolm, Dr. Sattler. I do believe our good friend, the attorney, was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed the dialogue because I felt like Malcolm really tried to bring it down to simple terms. Take away all the fluff and all the excitement, but bring it back to what the essence of everything is.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said was, gee, the lack of humility before nature that's being displayed here staggers me. And that, to me, is he was looking at it and saying, you guys, it's lovely that we've got this wonderful park or whatever, but the respect, like the science, the respect of the science is gone. We're not focusing on what's important here.
Yeah, I think he really strikes a nerve with Hammond, where Hammond feels very offended at the fact that Ian is like accusing him of just bastardizing nature and the balance of evolution. And
yeah, I feel like he kind of treated him like he had been playing God in something that he might not have understood, because he follows that up with, I'll tell you the problem with scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You read what others had done and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could. Before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox. And now you're selling it. You want to sell it well. And I also liked when he followed it up with, there was one other quote that he said. What's so great about discovery? It's a violent, penetrative act that scars what it explores. What you call discovery, I call the rape of the natural world.
Yeah.
he hit the nail on the head. And I think Hammond didn't want to hear it because he knew it was true. And then a quote that was also in there was, "Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should." And I feel like that, poignant,
which is a
powerful statement.
A powerful statement. Yeah.
And again, I really feel like Hammond knew this was true. He didn't want to hear it. He didn't want anyone to say it to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to hear it. And it was in a room of people that were actually, experts in the field. I don't think Hammond really knew how to respond to it. So he didn't really say a lot.
Mm-hmm. Other than try to get Grant on his side, it was like, well, maybe somebody here will listen to me. And then Grant was even like, no, they've got a point. And so he's like, who would have thought that the only person on my team would have been the blood-sucking lawyer?
Exactly. And Dr. Sattler had one comment where she said, "How can you know anything about an extinct ecosystem? And therefore, how could you ever assume that you could control it?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. They all tie together. But with all of these quotes, I just feel like it brought the story, before everything went down, it brought the story to a point where I started questioning. It's like, I love dinosaurs, and oh my gosh, this is so amazing, but wow, they're right, and they didn't think about these things. And I started to think about what other things in general life do we hurry on that maybe we shouldn't because we don't understand.
Yeah.
So, and on that note, Pake, what do you have for us?
All right. I'm so glad that you bring so many of the really poignant and deep quotes, because then I get to just play the role of most of my quotes, because I'm just a big fan of comedy and humor. And so most of my quotes are always the jokes. So you get to come in with the really deep, thoughtful stuff, and then I get to come in with, what about the funny stuff? So that's great.
I like that, though. I like that. I like that you bring the funny.
Yes, because there are, as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, this movie is very action-packed and very tense, and there's a lot of intensity to it. And so they have to sprinkle in a little bit of humor and comic relief to relieve that tension at times, and I really pick up on those moments. So we'll go through some of my favorites. At the dig site at the beginning, when Ellie and Alan are first meeting John Hammond, and he's kind of explaining the park to them without giving a whole lot away. But he says, there's no doubt that our attraction will drive kids out of their minds. And then Alan Grant, talking about the attractions, of course, but he goes, and what are those? Which Ellie looks back and goes, they're small versions of adults, honey. I think he's talking about the kids instead of the attractions. Our attractions will blow kids' minds. And what are those? Small versions of adults, honey. When they meet Ian Malcolm in the helicopter, first of all, just that laugh is an iconic thing. Whatever Jeff Goldblum is doing, whatever that was, it's beautiful. To where then just John Hammond responds with just like, "Oh, you'll have to get used to Dr. Malcolm. He suffers from a deplorable excess of personality," which is a great way to describe that character. And Jeff Goldblum.
I know. And he was. At first glance, if you look at the cast for this movie and you see him thrown in with all of the others and not understanding, you're like, what the heck is he doing in this movie? But then once you start watching and there's giggling and there's all of these one-liners, and it just becomes abundantly clear why he's there.
And then also his character is, you need the mathematician, the chaos theory fan to be able to point out where things can go wrong. And he does. But then there's just so many iconic lines that give you chills when you hear them. Like, of course, and they're the simple things, but of course, welcome to Jurassic Park. Will get you every time. Or they do move in herds. When Alan Grant looks at the guy, like he's looking out at them over by the water. And yeah, it's John Hammond is a huge fan of the phrase "spared no expense." Spared absolutely no expense. Spared no expense. It comes up throughout the movie all the way. Even in the small stuff, when he's sitting there eating the ice cream, they were melting anyway. And then Ellie gives him the quotes that you mentioned earlier, talking about, I was, the flea circus and her being buying into the illusion stuff. And then she ends it with eating a bite of the ice cream. Oh, that is good, though. Spared no expense. Ray, the character played by Samuel L. Jackson, loves the phrase "hold on to your butts," which I use regularly in my daily life because I love it. Ian Malcolm looking at the droppings and just saying, "That is one big pile of shit," is a great line.
I think he followed it up with, "I hope you're going to wash your hands."
Yeah, before you eat anything. Let's see. Two more that I thought were fun is when the T-Rex is coming back for the second time after they've rescued Malcolm from under the wreckage of the bathroom, and he's sitting there, they're about to get him, and says, "Can we chance moving him?" And then they hear the kind of thumping stuff going on. And, "Please chance it." Let's. Yeah, and one more that I thought was kind of funny is when Tim and Alan Grant climbing down the tree to escape the Jeep falling on them a second time, and they get down, and then the Jeep lands on top of them, but of course they're safe inside of it. And Tim just goes, "Well, we're back in the car again." Alan goes, "At least you're out of the tree."
Yes. Yes. No more tree. Those were hilarious. There were so many great comedy moments, though. And I feel like they were sprinkled in at just the right time to keep people from going completely into nervous mode. It just gave you that little bit of laugh to bring you right back down to earth, and then more chaos happened. And I really liked that. This movie does that well,
because even being, 27 years old, and I've seen it so many times, so I know everything that's going to happen. Nothing's going to be a surprise to me, but still, I feel that anxiety and that tension watching those scenes, just being like on the edge, the whole time. I know it's going to be fine or not fine for some people, but still, it's so just thrilling to watch.
Well, this podcast has already gone beyond our normal length of our podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's such an iconic movie, and there's just so much to talk about. Even
you can't fit Jurassic Park into an hour, under an hour.
You can't do it. And the funny thing is, there's even more that we have not talked about. But I thought we could do something quick on the sequels a little bit. Just, like 5 minutes maybe before closing out with our rankings and signing off. So, why don't we tackle them one at a time? And I'll go first with the Lost World Jurassic Park, which was the only other movie in the Jurassic Park series that was directed by Steven Spielberg. It was released in 1997, and Spielberg actually asked Michael Crichton to write the sequel novel, and it was released in 1995 entitled The Lost World. A quick synopsis: taking place 4 years later, Hammond coerces a reluctant Dr. Ian Malcolm to visit Isla Sorna, which is Jurassic Park Site B, as part of a research team to study and document the dinosaurs. Isla Sorna is an island 87 miles away from the previous home of Jurassic Park, which was on Isla Nublar. However, Ludlow, who is Hammond's nephew, has taken over InGen and sent another larger team to the same island to catch, sedate, and transport some dinosaurs to San Diego, where they will be used in a new Jurassic Park location. To that I say, what could go wrong?
Right? Bringing them to the States? No, that's fine. Nothing can go wrong at all.
No big deal. No big deal at all.
All right. And then in 2001, Joe Johnston directed Jurassic Park 3, where a wealthy couple, Paul and Amanda Kirby, persuade Dr. Grant to give them an aerial tour of Isla Sorna. Maybe they have some other reasons, but you'll have to watch to find that out. And this is despite the fact that he had not been to this island since, again, the original movie was on Isla Nublar, so they're going to this Site B again. It does, this movie marks the appearance of the Spinosaurus. We see that for the first time. He was kept on Site B, and holy crap, yeah, the Spinosaurus was the largest animatronic ever built. It's 25 feet high, length reaching around 40 feet long, weighed 24,000 pounds, and was operated by hydraulics. They did a lot of it the same way they did the T-Rex in this movie, which is awesome. Laura Dern briefly reprises her role as Ellie Sattler, And we learn what direction Ellie's life has taken since this first film. Also stars William H. Macy and Tia Leone.
Yes. Liked that one.
Yeah.
It's probably my least favorite, but it was still pretty good.
It was still really fun. It has its great moments.
It has dinosaurs.
Yeah.
What more could you want? Jurassic World was directed by Colin Trevorrow and released in 2015. And the synopsis is: a new park in the location of the original has been up and running successfully for about a decade. The geneticists get ahead of themselves once again. Who thought that could happen? And create a new hybrid dinosaur. And of course, all hell breaks loose because of that. This episode of the series, I guess you could call it, stars Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. Plus, it features 2 kids as well, like the original, 2 brothers who are related to the main character. What could go wrong here?
Then in 2018, J.A. Bayona directed Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. This long dormant volcano on the Jurassic World island, which is also the original Jurassic Park island, Isla Nublar, has become active, and so the character of Owen, who was played by Chris Pratt, has to return to save the dinosaurs. So when they move the dinosaurs they've saved back to mainland, back to, civilized areas, there's a strange conspiracy behind the dinosaur cloning technology, which puts a whole new wrench in the works. I'm not going to go into spoilers on what all that entails. You'll have to watch to find out. Another new hybrid dinosaur of super scary proportions is also introduced in this film. Bryce Dallas Howard returns alongside Pratt, introduces a character played by Justice Smith as well, which is really fun. Goldblum does briefly reprise his role as Dr. Ian Malcolm in this film.
And closing it out, if all goes well, cross your fingers, everyone, Jurassic World Dominion is being directed by Colin Trevorrow, who directed the first Jurassic World. So really excited that he's back at the helm. It is slated to be released in 2021. Nothing is known of the plot at this time, which is good. However, it is confirmed that the old school cast and the new school cast will be uniting with the return of Jeff Goldblum, Laura Dern, and Sam Neill. I am so excited about this. Mm-hmm. I can't even tell you.
Yes.
They will join Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt. And Trevorrow has described it as a science thriller in the vein of the original that will focus more on real dinosaurs again, as opposed to the hybrids. While I like the hybrids, there's something about a T-Rex. There's something about the old, reliable Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Stygimoloch, all of those dinosaurs. There's something to be said for those that I really, I'm hoping that they will get back to. And so I'm excited to see what they do. And by all reports, they're starting to film. Ooh. So cross your fingers.
Yes, we need this. We need it.
We need it. We need it. We definitely do. So we're going to move into our feedback section, and we actually have a few messages to read and a couple of voicemails. So I'm going to go ahead and read the first one. It's from Matthew McDougall.
Yay.
He says,
cool.
Jurassic Park is one of those few films that as a kid, it was a straight up masterpiece. It was gorgeous to watch, and the soundtrack is amazing. Then you grow up as an adult, and when you watch it, you feel exactly the same as you did as a kid. One of the best films ever crafted.
I wholeheartedly agree, Matt. Yes.
Yes, me too. We've talked about it a few times, about how well we think that the movie has held up over time. And it's amazing that in watching it now, it just takes you back to how you were feeling when you watched it the first time.
Definitely.
So, Pake, do you want to read the next one?
All right, yeah, we've got an email here from Mr. Jeffrey Oliver. And he says, when I was 8, I saw Jurassic Park in the theater. I was terrified, yet glued to my spot. During the raptors in the kitchen scene, I literally peed my pants. The next year, the live-action Flintstones movie was released. My family rolled into the local drive-in to see it. We talked about what was next for the evening during the credits, when suddenly that dramatic drumbeat and eerie flute for the intro Jurassic Park started playing. That was our evening. Thankfully, my shorts stayed dry, but I felt like I was right there with Lex and Tim in the tour vehicles, with the T-Rex looming over me with the night sky above the outdoor screen. These days, perhaps in honor of their mighty ancestors, I find Jurassic Park to be my favorite film for Thanksgiving. That's awesome. That's a great story. I love it.
Me too.
And I just can picture that scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
The outdoor theater. Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks, Jeff.
It is. Thank you, Jeff. So we actually have 2 voicemails that we received this week. And so I'm going to just get started and play the first one, which is from our friend Steve.
Hey, Pake and Daphne, this is Steve. This is for Jurassic Park, and I think my favorite part of this movie, it's stupid, but it's right at the beginning when Needry is talking to Dodgson, and Dodgson's like, don't use my name, and Needry's like, Dodgson, we got Dodgson here. Nobody cares. My sister's favorite line or couple of lines is, oh, we're back in the car again. Well, at least you're not in the tree. I forgot how this movie, the intensity, the tension is so great. I don't know if it's the direction, the soundtrack, the acting, it's all the way it works together, but there's so many moments that even though I've seen it before, I know how it ends, I know what's going to happen, it still got me on the edge of my seat, tense. It's been years since I read the book, but the one thing that I do remember that was glaring, that stood out to me, was in the book, Muldoon knew what the velociraptors were doing. He wasn't surprised at all. I don't remember exactly how it played out, but I know that, like, the movie makes it almost seem like he was surprised that he got jumped from the side. But like I said, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the book makes it clear. He knew what was going on. He just got caught in the trap. Okay. Final thought, and then I'll wrap this up, because I'm watching it, and if you haven't figured out, I've been kind of adding to this as I've been watching the movie. Where was the helicopter pilot during this whole time? Literally, was he freaking just hanging out at the helicopter? Because, like, they were supposed to be there for 2 days, right? 48 hours, that was the whole thing. So this whole time, is he just hanging out? Is like a shack by the helicopter pad that he's just waiting there for them to show up so that he can fly them back? All right. Can't wait to hear you guys' thoughts. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Steve. That is a good point. He's just like, it sounds like something's going on out there, but I gotta stay here.
It's one of those things that does make you wonder. I guess I never really gave it that much thought.
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking he just came in at the right time to pick them up and take them out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he has a secret hideout that he goes and just waits for everybody to reach out to him. Who knows? Our next voicemail is from our friend Mark.
Hey, Pake and Daphne. I just wanted to say you guys are doing a great job of what's going on within the podcast. I just love what your coverage is. I always wanted to do this myself, and I'm so glad you guys are taking it up. I love the Tremors podcast. That was amazing, but immensely, I love the Cloverfield one. That was something that I always dreamt of doing, and I just loved how you guys got into so much detail on both movies. It's amazing. So all your listeners out there, follow them. Get with them. Just listen to them. They're amazing. I love the details and all the deep dives into all the information based upon around each movie. And it's amazing. I love what they do. And with this movie, Jurassic Park, it's an all-time favorite of mine as well. I love the series. I can't wait for the new Jurassic Park movie, or Jurassic World Dominion, to come out. And the first one holds dear to me. I've read the book. I love the movie. They're both different, but the cool aspect that I saw in the movie that a lot of people don't realize or catch in the very beginning. Life does find a way with Alan Grant, and when he ties the both female belt buckles together because he couldn't find the male belt buckle to clip in. And I thought that was amazing. To me, that is perfect. That just kind of sums up everything that was going on within that movie, because life does find a way, as Ian Malcolm, plainly states. And there are things that are different from the book and the movie, but I like each individually, and you can't really compare, in my opinion, because the book is the book and the movie's the movie. But what I liked what they did in the sequel for Lost World is that they used something from within the first book to put in as a segue into the first, into the Lost World. So basically you get that scene in the very beginning with the little girl with the compies and everything, but it was a different outcome in the book. And I just love that part of that particular movie, but unfortunately we didn't get that within this one, as well as other dinosaurs that we didn't get to see. The camouflaging dinosaurs at the end. We didn't have 2 T-Rexes, but honestly, the way Spielberg did this and Michael Crichton wrote out the screenplay, it was perfect for the way we got it. I just wish Samuel L. Jackson was, alive in the movie, but we don't get what we want at the very end. And that was at the very beginning of his career, as far as his celebrity and people noticing who he is. So keep it up. I'm glad you guys are part of the Pirate Core Entertainment Network, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. And yeah, as he stated, we are proud to be part of the Pirate Core Entertainment family, which is a new podcast network, and not just podcasts, but an entertainment network. There will be podcasts, videos, all kinds of different stuff in the making. It is a new undertaking. So of course we are the first podcast launched on here, and I'm very, very grateful to be given that opportunity. But definitely check out Pirate Core Entertainment. And there's so much more that is coming down the road that will be really fun. Different podcasts, different shows. And yeah, if anybody wants to check out some other stuff, fans of the Umbrella Academy, if you are a fan of that show, then currently right now over on Strange Indeed, myself and Rima are covering season 2 of Umbrella Academy. And then on Panels to Pixels podcast, the 2 voicemails you heard, Mark and Steve, are both covering Umbrella Academy over on that podcast as well. So if you're a fan of that show, check both of those podcasts out, because there's some really great stuff going on both there. If I can say, I can speak for myself, I think we're doing pretty great. And then I know that they are doing awesome. So yeah.
As a listener of both of those podcasts, if you like a show, you should definitely listen to more than one podcast about it.
Yeah.
You get different opinions, and it's always a lot of fun.
It's good stuff. Yeah, but again, thank you all so much for your feedback. We really, really appreciate that. And again, we love getting emails from you guys. So email us, runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. And then those voicemails are really fun. We love hearing your voices. So if we can get some voicemails, we always love that. And the best way to do that is to use like a voice memo recorder on your phone, record your audio, and then email it to us. And we will get it that way. And it sounds great. So thank you guys again so much.
Thanks, guys. And so that brings us to our rankings. Peg, would you like to go first this week?
All right. I think where I'm going to wind up on this is, again, I don't think it's possible to give something a perfect score of 10. Because, I mean, yeah, this movie doesn't have a whole lot wrong with it. I think the only things maybe that, even though we talked a lot about the amazingness of the practical effects, the CGI doesn't hold up as well in some of these places. And then some of the things are just kind of, it's mostly perfect, but then, something like, oh, how would they not notice that this T-Rex was sneaking into the building to save them? Like, where did that come from? Or who is this really annoying random kid at the dig site?
Well, I wondered too, why didn't Tim give the gun over to Ellie while she was trying to she had her back on the door. Uh-huh. Tim could have grabbed the gun and given it to her. It's kind of like...
Yeah, he was just standing there next to the computer, which was, even for 1993 standards, was real slow. But yeah, so taking all of that into account, it still probably gets... this is a weird ranking, but probably about a 9.3.
A 9.3.
Not quite 0.5, but close. It's up there, though, because, yeah, like I said, damn near perfect.
I actually am coming in on this movie with a 9.25.
Just right under.
So we're very close, which is good. We usually are, so that's kind of cool. Do you have any parting thoughts on the movie, other than if anyone hasn't seen it, they need to find it. It is currently streaming on Netflix.
It is.
And it's worth it to sit down with some popcorn.
Absolutely.
With that, guys, we're nearing the end. So I'm just going to say to submit your theories and feedback. You can do that on our Facebook page at Run For Your Lives Podcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. And that is the end of our episode, folks.
We made it.
Thank you so much for listening. I am Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.